Good morning.
Good
Thank you once
morning,
again.
Timothy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Timothy.
Yes.
Thank you. This is Mashua Kahoshio from the State Department of Lands and Physical Planning. Thank you for joining us this morning for our weekly webinar on Ardhisasa processes. Today we'll be looking at the charge and the power of attorney processes on the system. For those who are joining us for the first time, we have been conducting webinars on various processes in the system. And maybe I'm just going to give a few opening remarks regarding Ardhisasa. One of the things we need to clearly understand from the onset is that a charge application can only be initiated by an advocate who has an account on Ardhisasa and they have upgraded their account to the advocate status. So the advocate will require to switch to the advocate role and be able to initiate the charge process together with the power of attorney. And this one is generally across most of the registration processes because those processes are required, those documents are required to be drawn by an advocate. And remember, in this process, we are not talking about you submitting a physical charge, as we shall be able to demonstrate. The system will be able to generate the LRA Form 53 for a charge document at the end of the process. So the requirement is to have the property owner who requires to charge the property to have an account on the system and have the property verified. And in cases where we are coming from a conversion, requires to have the property having been converted to Nairobi block so that the advocate now can be able to initiate a charge application. It is important that we pay attention on the process because some of the few challenges that we have had, and especially which I want to talk about on the onset, is the issues of timelines. Our ideal timelines after you have been able to submit an application successfully to the registry is around 4 days. But you realize that sometimes those timelines are not adhered to because of the various challenges that our users have when making an application on the system. And therefore, it is important that all of us are attentive. Please, if you have questions, you can put them on the chat. And then we'll obviously be giving opportunities for you to raise your hand so that you can be able to ask some questions. So I'll be coming back later to the issues of timelines and other challenges that we experience as officers in the ministry that eat into the timelines. We'll also be talking about power of attorney after the charge process. So without further ado, I just want to welcome Timothy to take us through the process of the charge, and then I will see how it develops. Karibuni sana. Thank you so much. God bless
you. Good morning, everyone. As Mr. Kosh has mentioned, my name is Timothy. I'm a system trainer, and I'll be taking you through the charge process and the POA process. So I believe everyone can see the screen I've shared. If you are not able to see, kindly text on the chat feature that we have so that we can be able to assist so that you can see the screen shared. Now, log into the system. I believe at this point, we all know the process of logging in, so I'll not dwell much on the logging in process. I have an account which is already logged in, and by default, it logs you to the private account. But for you to initiate a service as an advocate, you have to switch to your advocate account, and we do so by clicking on the profile photo. Then it will give you the accounts that have been approved on your account to operate on Ardhisasa, and we will switch to the advocate account. The charge application is under the Land Registration Department, and it's one of the commonly sought after services, and it appears among the first 3 listed applications. So we have the charge. But for you to initiate other applications which are not listed under the commonly sought after, you will click on View More, and you'll see all the services which have been digitized under Land Registration Department. So I'll proceed to the charge application, and under the charge, we have several services. We have the charge, the consent, the discharge of charge, the informal memorandum of variation, transfer of charge, and partial discharge. On your side, you might not find all of the services listed because there are some which we are still developing. On the charge services, we still have the memorandum of variation of charge, not yet digitized, but I believe it's on the final stages and you'll be able to see it soon. So I'll be dealing with the charge, but let me just mention that for charges which requires consent for second or subsequent charge, you'll have to apply for the consent through the platform. And once the consent is approved, then you'll use it on the main charge application. I'll request that we mute our mics so that we don't have the background noises that we are facing. Kindly, let's all mute our mics. It's a humble request. Let's mute our mics so that we have a seamless presentation. So I'll proceed to the charge application. And kindly, Adriana, mute your mic. Adriana, kindly mute your mic, please. So I'll proceed, and on our interface that you can see on the screen, we have 5 tabs. We have the pending, ongoing, completed, rejected, and cancelled. So basically what these tabs, their functionality is to display applications depending on the level of applications of these level of processing of this transaction. The pending tab will hold applications that you have initiated, but there are some actions required from your side to complete the transaction. Ongoing will hold applications that have been initiated and you have submitted. It's waiting processing by the land registration officers. Completed are the already registered charges. Rejected are charge applications that were rejected for one reason or another. Cancelled will hold applications that you initiated and decided to cancel along the way for whatever reason. So basically those tabs, their functionality is to display application depending on the level of processing of the application. Now for you to initiate the application, new charge application, you will click on new application and it will navigate you to the FAQ section. Every application on the system will have the FAQs, and I believe you can see a link for YouTube tutorials. We do have YouTube tutorials for all the applications that we have brought on board on the Ardhisasa system. So if you find a challenge navigating through a certain process, just go to YouTube, search Ardhisasa, and you'll be able to find all our tutorials regarding to the processes that we have. So after the FAQs, you'll proceed and initiate or give the charge details. The first bit which you will be required to select is the charge application type. Is it a fast charge or is it a subsequent or additional charge? If it is a fast charge, you'll go with the fast radio button. If it's an additional charge, you'll click on additional charge, and it will give you more fields to give more information. One of the fields that you'll get is the charge title. So this is where you type the kind of charge you are taking. Is it a further charge, second further charge, third further charge? Is it, well, depending on the charge you are taking. Then additionally, you will be required to select the additional charge type. Is it subsequent with the same bank, or are you introducing a new charge? If you are introducing a new charge, then on this field below, the one I've highlighted, you will be required to give the reference, the consent reference number. And I mentioned before that you have to seek the reference by applying the consent by applying for the consent through the system. Then once the consent is approved, you will give the reference number in the highlighted field. But for today's presentation, I'll proceed with the first charge. Then you'll have to give the parcel number, not the parcel number that you will be charging. And with me, I have a parcel number, which is parcel 119, block 119, parcel 1193. So that is the parcel number that we'll be using. After you key in the parcel number, you proceed and click add, and your parcel number will be listed as you can see. If you are charging more than one parcel number, one parcel at a go, then you'll give the second parcel and add, and you can see that all the parcels you are charging will be listed. But for today, let's proceed with a charge containing one parcel number. The second, the next step is the principal amount, and you will provide the amount that you are charging and the currency that you are charging. And under the list of currencies, I believe we can see that we have all the currencies that are available for transactions. So you'll select the currency. For now, I'll go with Kenya shillings, and I'll be charging an amount of 20 million. Then you proceed and click on add, and you can see that your consideration amount will be listed. If you are securing the charge with multiple currencies, then you'll proceed and select the currency. Let's say you're charging in Kenya shillings and US dollars, then you'll provide the US dollars. Let's say you are charging $100,000. You'll have to provide the exchange rate for purposes. The exchange rate is for purposes of calculating the stamp duty that you'll pay. So this exchange rate will not go into the charge document, but the collector of stamp duty or the assessor of stamp duty will use this figure to ascertain the stamp duty that you are supposed to pay. And you click on add, and you can see that it will be listed among the principal amounts that you are securing your charge in. But for now, again, I'll proceed with Kenya shillings. Then the next step is you'll provide the charger details, and you do so by keying in the Ardhisasa ID of the charger. So in this case, you'll give the Ardhisasa ID of the charger. And just to mention, the system has validations. If you key in an Ardhisasa ID of a person who is registered in the manual space or in the digital space. Now, the format that we use for power of attorney entry numbers in the system has a format that begins with the registry where the power of attorney was registered, the power of attorney entry number, the month it was registered, then the year it was registered. So for example, we'll have, if the power of attorney was registered in Nairobi, it will be Nairobi, then /entry 1, it was registered in the month of January in the year of 2019. That is the format. So when you click on search, the system will pull the details of the attorney, and it will display, as you can see. There are instances that you will not find the Ardhisasa ID if that power of attorney has never been used on the system. But if it has been used before, it will populate the power of the ID, the Ardhisasa ID of the attorney. Then you proceed and click on save. And we can see that we have the charger, in our case being Benjamin, and the person to execute being Evans. So that's using a power of attorney. If this person is using or is executing for himself, then you'll choose the self option. And when you select self and the save, you'll find that the charger is Benjamin and the person to execute will still be Benjamin. Then we proceed and provide the chargee details. In this case, you will be providing the Ardhisasa ID of the bank or of the institution that is issuing the charge. So you'll key in the Ardhisasa ID. In this case, I'm using a mock account for KCB bank. So when you click on search, you'll still have the pop-up, and I believe you can see the difference. For the individual, you'll have the self option. For an organization, you'll either have the director, attorney, and for organizations that are not registered with BRS, the Business Registration Service, you'll get the third option of appointed signatories. But if your organization is registered with the BRS, then you'll only have the first two options. Now, the third option is for, as I've mentioned, for organization not registered with the BRS. And the reason we have the third option is because our system is integrated with the Business Registration Service database, and we are able to query the list of the directors in real time. So the Ardhisasa system does not store the list or the details of the directors of a certain organization. When we need the details of your director, we query directly from the BRS database. So if you register today a director, but the BRS has not effected the change in their system, that director will not be able to proceed on the Ardhisasa system. So the third option comes in because let's take an example of a government institution. Let me take an example of Ministry of Lands, for example. it is not registered with the BRS. So if they have an account on Ardhisasa system, we will mark their account in a way that that organization is able to list their own signatories, and that organization have full control of their signatories. So when you come and click appointed signatories, it will list for you the people who that organization have listed as their signatories. And when you select the checkboxes, you'll select the number of people you want to execute on that document, and they'll be able to execute on that document. The other option is going with the director's option, whereby when you click and key in the Ardhisasa ID of a director who is registered with the BRS as a director, the system will be able to pull their details, and you'll be able to proceed with your application. Just like the one I've mentioned, we've pulled the details of that director and we save, and you'll find that the charge is KCB Bank and the person to execute is Agnes. If there is a borrower involved in that charge, then you'll proceed and give the borrower's details. But if there is no borrower, you leave that field blank because it's an optional field. Then you proceed to the next page where you provide more details. And the first detail that you'll provide is the debenture detail. If your charge has a debenture tied to it, then you'll provide those details. You'll tell us whether the debenture is collateral or supplemental to the charge, and you'll give us the instrument that you used for the debenture as listed. And you've given an example of a car and the amount that was secured. Again, the purpose of this bit is for assessment of stamp duty, because the way a charge is, the stamp duty for a charge which has debentures is calculated is different from a charge which is not tied to a debenture. So if your charge is not tied to a debenture, you'll select the no debenture option, and then you proceed to the law firm details. You'll provide the law firm the details of the law firm which is drawing this document. We have two ways of identifying the law firm. The first one is you can either tie this application to a registered law firm on the system, or you can key in the details of the law firm in the fields that are provided. So you'll proceed with tying application to a registered law firm, and when you key in the Ardhisasa ID of the law firm and such, it will pull the details of the law firm and displayed on the screen. Then you'll just fill in some of the details that the law firm might not have provided during the registration. Then you proceed to the next step, which is the whereas details. Basically, this is the covenants between the parties involved in this charge. By default, the system has given two covenants or whereas details, but these details are editable, or you can delete and key in your own whereas detail. So the way we request that you do the whereas details is that you key in those details in the text area that is provided, and we request that you do a clause by clause. Do not copy all the clauses that you have and paste it at once, because the system will treat that information as one entry. So kindly do, for example, the one I've pasted, when you click on add, it will be listed as number 3. So if you have another one, you will type or paste and add, and you can see that we have number 4. So if you do so, the system will arrange your clauses in an orderly manner. Again, whatever the ministry or the registration requires you to key in is the principal clauses which are necessary for a charge to be registered. We all understand that the clauses that you have might go up to 70 or 80 in number, but whatever the registry requires is the principal or the key ones, which is necessary for a charge to be registered. Now, the remaining, which could be 80, 70, 90, 100, will require you to provide them in a form of a document in the next step, which I will demonstrate. And we will keep those records for reference or for whatever purpose that might be needed in future. And again, just to mention as I continue, whatever we are doing as I type in or I key in all these details, is equivalent in the manual space to filling the LRA 53 form. So at the end product of this application will be an LRA 53, which is a charge document, which is generated by the system. And it is the document that is registered, and it is the document that will be issued to you. So whatever clauses you key in at this point is what the system will generate the charge document with. So that is about the charge, the whereas details. Then you'll proceed to the stamp duty section. And this is where you'll select whether you're applying for exemption of stamp duty or you're not applying for exemption of stamp duty. So for now, if you are applying for exemption, you will give us the section under which you are applying for exemption. By default, we have listed section 17 under the Stamp Duty Act. But if you are seeking for exemption on another section, which is not 17, you will click on other section and you will enter the section and the chapter under which you are seeking. They registered in the manual space or in the digital space. Now, the format that we use for power of attorney entry numbers in the system has a format that begins with the registry where the power of attorney was registered, the power of attorney entry number, the month it was registered, then the year it was registered. So for example, we'll have, if the power of attorney was registered in Nairobi, it will be Nairobi, then /entry 1, it was registered in the month of January in the year of 2019. That is the format. So when you click on search, the system will pull the details of the attorney and it will display, as you can see. There are instances that you will not find the Ardhisasa ID if that power of attorney has never been used on the system. But if it has been used before, it will populate the power of the ID, the Ardhisasa ID of the attorney. Then you proceed and click on save. And we can see that we have the charger, in our case being Benjamin, and the person to execute being Evans. So that's using a power of attorney. If this person is using or is executing for himself, then you'll choose the self option. And when you select self and the save, you'll find that the charger is Benjamin and the person to execute will still be Benjamin. Then we proceed and provide the chargee details. In this case, you will be providing the Ardhisasa ID of the bank or of the institution that is issuing the charge. So you'll key in the Ardhisasa ID. In this case, I'm using a mock account for KCB bank. So when you click on search, you'll still have the pop-up, and I believe you can see the difference. For the individual, you'll have the self option. For an organization, you'll either have the director, attorney, and for organizations that are not registered with BRS, the Business Registration Service, you'll get the third option of appointed signatories. But if your organization is registered with the BRS, then you'll only have the first two options. Now, the third option is for, as I've mentioned, for organization not registered with the BRS. And the reason we have the third option is because our system is integrated with the Business Registration Service database, and we are able to query the list of the directors in real time. So the Ardhisasa system does not store the list or the details of the directors of a certain organization. When we need the details of your director, we query directly from the BRS database. So if you register today a director, but the BRS has not effected the change in their system, that director will not be able to proceed on the Ardhisasa system. So the third option comes in because let's take an example of a government institution. Let me take an example of Ministry of Lands, for example. It is not registered with the BRS. So if they have an account on Ardhisasa system, we will mark their account in a way that that organization is able to list their own signatories, and that organization have full control of their signatories. So when you come and click appointed signatories, it will list for you the people who that organization have listed as their signatories. And when you select the checkboxes, you'll select the number of people you want to execute on that document, and they'll be able to execute on that document. The other option is going with the director's option, whereby when you click and key in the Ardhisasa ID of a director who is registered with the BRS as the director, the system will be able to pull their details and you'll be able to proceed with your application. Just like the one I've mentioned, we've pulled the details of that director and we save, and you'll find that the charge is KCB Bank and the person to execute is Agnes. If there is a borrower involved in that charge, then you'll proceed and give the borrower's details. But if there is no borrower, you leave that field blank because it's an optional field. Then you proceed to the next page, but you'll provide more details. The first detail that you'll provide is the debenture detail. If your charge has a debenture tied to it, then you'll provide those details. You'll tell us whether the debenture is collateral or supplemental to the charge, and you'll give us the instrument that you used for the debenture as listed. And you've given an example of a car and the amount that was secured. Again, the purpose of this bit is for assessment of stamp duty, because the way a charge is, the stamp duty for a charge which has debentures is calculated is different from a charge which is not tied to a debenture. So if your charge is not tied to a debenture, you'll select the no debenture option, and then you proceed to the law firm details. You'll provide the law firm the details of the law firm which is drawing this document. We have two ways of identifying the law firm. The first one is you can either tie this application to a registered law firm on the system, or you can key in the details of the law firm in the fields that are provided. So we'll proceed with tying application to a registered law firm, and when you key in that the ID of the law firm and such, it will pull the details of the law firm and displayed on the screen. Then you'll just fill in some of the details that the law firm might not have provided during the registration. Then you proceed to the next step, which is the whereas details. Basically, this is the covenants between the parties involved in this charge. By default, the system has given two covenants or whereas details, but these details are editable, or you can delete and key in your own whereas detail. So the way we request that you do the whereas details is that you key in those details in the text area that is provided, and we request that you do a clause by clause. Do not copy all the clauses that you have and paste it at once, because the system will treat that information as one entry. So kindly do, for example, you can, the one I've pasted, when you click on add, it will be listed as number 3. So if you have another one, you will type or paste and add, and you can see that we have number 4. So if you do so, the system will arrange your clauses in an orderly manner. Again, whatever the ministry or the registration requires you to key in is the principal clauses which are necessary for a charge to be registered. We all understand that the clauses that you have might go up to 70 or 80 in number, but whatever the registry requires is the principal or the key ones, which is necessary for a charge to be registered. Now, the remaining, which could be 80, 70, 90, 100, will require you to provide them in a form of a document in the next step, which I will demonstrate. And we will keep those records for reference or for whatever purpose that might be needed in future. And again, just to mention as I continue, whatever we are doing as I type in or I key in all these details is equivalent in the manual space to filling the LRA 53 form. So at the end product of this application will be an LRA 53, which is a charge document, which is generated by the system, and it is the document that is registered, and it is the document that will be issued to you. So whatever clauses you key in at this point is what the system will generate the charge document with. So that is about the charge, the whereas details. Then you'll proceed to the stamp duty section. And this is where you'll select whether you're applying for exemption of stamp duty or you're not applying for exemption of stamp duty. So for now, If you are applying for exemption, you will give us the section under which you are applying for exemption. By default, we have listed section 17 under the Stamp Duty Act. But if you are seeking for exemption on another section, which is not 17, you will click on other section and you will enter the section and the chapter under which you are seeking the exemption under the area that are highlighted in blue. If you are seeking under legal notices, for example, like government institution or institution that are legally given exemption, then you'll go for legal notices and you'll give us the legal notice number and the date of the legal notice. So for now, I'll proceed with no exemption. So that means we'll be getting assessment for full stamp duty. Then I proceed to the next section and I'll provide the documents that are required for the charge to be registered. We have the additional provisions, which basically will be a document showing all the covenants or the clauses that the charge contains. And we also have the spousal consent, which is not a mandatory document, but I believe for charges which involve the individuals, the spousal consent or an affidavit to show that you are not married will be required. For companies, you will be required to upload a CR12 and a current CR12. So now I'll proceed under details of the charge. You want to upload additional details which you feel like will facilitate the registration of the charge. You are free to upload. For example, if it was a company involved, you could upload a CR12, for example, and then upload, and you can see that there is a CR12 uploaded. But since we are dealing with the charge involving an individual, not a company, the CR12 will not be necessary. Then I'll proceed to the final page, which is confirmation of the details that I've provided. And you can see all the details. Additionally, you can edit the details that you've provided in the sections that you provided the details. And so those are the details we provided. If you want to edit, you can edit. If you are satisfied with the details that you've provided, you proceed and submit your application. Sorry for that. That is one of the validations that we have. So kindly allow me to redo the application so that we can proceed. So maybe as I do that, I'll open room so that my colleague can respond to some of the questions that we may have as I retype the details there for the charge. Sorry for that bit. So kindly raise your question and Mr. Kaosha will be able to respond to those questions.
So I have some few questions on the chat. What happens when the appointed signatories are not listed? As appointed signatories, these are signatories who have their entity registered under a special account. And what happens in that special account? One, it is marked as a special appointed signatories account. A tab will appear on the left side of the menu where they will be able to add their signatories for that account, what we call the appointed signatories. So I think that one will depend with the account itself. For example, if it's the Ministry of Lands and we have had our account marked as a special account, the person running that account will be required now to go into the account, the appointed signatories tab, and add the signatories using their Ardhisasa IDs, meaning if it's an official, for example, a chairman and so on and so forth, then they're required to have had the Ardhisasa account. Then another question here is, what is the right procedure for registration of a new POA? That one we will handle when we come to the issues of registration of powers of attorney. Nicholas, I thought online registration would be more effective and faster. Why do applied documents take too long to be worked on? I think that one I'm going to respond once we are through, because there are some things you need to see during the application process. We are now what happens, why there is always back and forth before the charge can be registered. When registering company charges, we started companies registered because of a time limit. Can the system be too many questions coming at once. I think where we before when registering company charges, we started at company's registry because of the time limit. With Ardhisasa, franking for stamp duty is by way of QR code. How can we avoid running out of time and consequently seeking court orders? I think I've said we'll just handle about the issues of timeline. Why is it that on exemption you do not get the instrument franked? We will handle that after we are through with the application. So I think we will be able to handle those questions. Maybe let's first finalize because some of those questions are we are preempting some of the issues that we'll be able to handle when we finalize the application.
I'll proceed. As you can see on the screen, the charge application has been created successfully. And at this point, the application has been created for now the parties involved in this application to do what is required of them. Basically, it is the execution of the signing, and we have what we call OTP verification, which is basically consenting to the charge by way of requesting for a one-time password to be sent to the registered phone number on the system. And then you key in the OTP and the system will allow you to proceed. So it's just one way of letting the proprietor to say that actually I am aware of this charge and I'm okay with it, and they'll key in the OTP and proceed. So I'll just go through some of the features that will be available to you as the advocate, and it will be available to your clients once the charge is created. The first thing is the reference number, which I've highlighted in blue. And this is a unique number to this specific charge application, which is used for tracking in the system. So when you contact customer care and you have an issue, maybe your charge is taking a while or anything regarding your charge, then you can say, I have a charge with this reference number, and they'll be able to track it. Secondly, we have the submit button, which at the moment is inactive, and it will only be active after all the parties have done what is required of them, and stamp duty has been paid. And I believe at this moment, we are all aware that the registration fees was reinstated. So you have to pay the registration fee, a figure of 500 shillings. And we do pay them through e-citizen for now. So there's a convenience fee of 50 shillings, which is usually charged by the e-citizen, and your amount will come to 550. Then we have the application details. Before I go to application details, you'll be able to see the documents that you uploaded, and your clients also will see the same. When the invoice for stamp duty is generated, it will be listed under the invoices. Under the application details, you'll be able to see the parties involved in that application and the actions that they have taken. For now, we can see that all of them have not signed, and the people who are required to verify this application using an OTP again have not verified. So we have Benjamin being the charger, and we have Agnes being the executor for the chargee, or the signatory for the chargee. Then we have where you as an advocate, you select the parties that you are representing. We are all aware that the bank will have their own advocate representing them, and the client could have his or her own advocate. But this application can only be created by one advocate. So as the advocate who initiated the application, you will select that I'm representing. For example, I could be representing ACB, and the client wishes to have his or her own attorney representing her. So I'll reject the representation of the client, so that on their account, they are able to choose or select the advocate who will represent or sign for them. So for this case, I'll just accept to represent the chargee and the charger. So I'll accept both. Then we'll have the signing bit. And when it comes to signing, we have several ways of signing. We have signing on the area that I'm scribbling in, you can see. And we have a method whereby you can sign with another device. So when you click on sign with another device, it will give you 4 options. But basically, all these 4 options, they are the end result is that you will get a link which you will use on another device, be it a smartphone or a tablet, to sign. So for example, if I go with the first option, it will ask me to scan the QR code. And when I scan the QR code, assuming I scan it with my smartphone, I'll get a signing area on my smartphone, the same with the one that I had demonstrated on the screen. Then I'll sign on my smartphone and save the signature on the smartphone. And then I'll come and confirm the signing just with the button below the QR code. And that signature will be uploaded to the platform, and I'll be able to proceed with the registration. So for now, I'll just sign on the signing area on the screen. And, save. Kindly, someone using Redmi, kindly mute. Then you'll proceed, and you'll be able to see all the details that you provided as an advocate. And again, all your class will be able to see this information. So that is what is required of you as the advocate up to that point. Now you will, of course, request your clients to sign. As you can see, the advocate have signed. Now we require the other two individuals to execute. So I'll request one of my colleagues to execute as the signatory of the chargee. Then I'll log in as the proprietor and execute. The execution bit is similar. So I'll just demonstrate using one account, then I'll request my colleague to assist me in the other one. So I'll log out as the advocate, then I'll log in as the proprietor being represented and execute. So I'm logged in as the proprietor being represented. And just to mention that when the application was created, when you submitted the first submission and the application was created, a message will be sent to all the parties involved. That is the advocate, the charger, and the chargee. And it will be sent via email and via text. And when you log into your account, under the notification bell, you can also be able to see the same notification, as you can see the first notification. And when you click on that notification, it will navigate you to that charge application. Ideally, again, you can go to the services, go to the land registration, and you go to the charge, and you'll be able to be navigated to the charge applications. And under pending, you'll have your application, the first one, with the reference ending with KX. And when you view that application, that is what you are able to see. So we can see this is the client you are representing. They are able to see the parties involved in the action. They have the OTP bit. When you request for the OTP, it will be sent to the phone number. And of course, you'll have that disclaimer on below the OTP text area telling you the advocate who initiated that application. So you, after requesting for the OTP, they will key in the OTP and click on verify. And it's a one-time verification. After that, that OTP section disappears. Then you have the parties involved and the people representing them. We can see that these people are represented by the same advocate. If it was a different advocate, the names could be displayed under the area I've highlighted. Then we have the signing area, similar to the one that. So apologies for that. I'll proceed and append the signature. And save the signature again. As I've said, you have the signing options. And of course, the details that were provided. And we can see that your clients have signed, the advocate have signed. You are just waiting for the signatory of the bank to execute. So I'll log in back as the advocate. I've logged in back as the advocate. I'll switch back to my advocate account, and I'll navigate to the charge application that we are dealing with, the KX application. And we can see that all the parties have executed. Now, at this point, the application proceeds to the assessor of stamp duty for assessment of stamp duty. Then after that, an invoice will be generated for you to be able to proceed. So I'll hand over to Mr. Kaosha to handle questions as I do the assessment bit so that we are able to proceed. So over to you, Mr. Kaosha.
Thank you for staying with us. I want to handle a few questions. First, there's someone who has asked on the issue of Ardhisasa IDs. Where do you find Ardhisasa IDs? Ardhisasa IDs, this is a system-generated identifier for every account. So upon creation of the account, the user is sent an Ardhisasa ID on their phone. And also, if you go to your account or to your portal, under my account, you'll be able to find the Ardhisasa ID there. Remember now, whenever you begin to do a transactions or during the processes, our processes on the system, you will now not be required to use your ID. You'll be using your Ardhisasa ID. So it is important that you note that. Then there's someone who has asked about the issue of the additional charge. Additional charge is what we call a further charge. This is where the charger is getting a loan facility from the same chargee. So that is what we call an additional charge. So it can be further charge, second further charge, etc. Another query is on who is a chargee on Ardhisasa. There's a question on whether individuals can qualify to be chargees. I think on the system and even in practice, what we have always implemented, these are money lending institutions. They are the ones that qualify to register their charges on our registers. There is also the issue of timelines. I think that one has been has been asked a lot. Why do we take time? First, I can talk about the issues of the application itself. One of the things that the advocates will require to check is whenever the parties that are coming or the actors in that transactions, you need first to check on whether, especially chargers who are individuals, whether they have uploaded on their accounts proper passport photos. We have had a problem with profile photos because sometimes your clients may not realize that the photos that they have uploaded on their profiles are the ones that are going to be used on the charge document. So the issues of profile photos is an issue. And therefore, when that application has been successfully submitted, you will find that the application will be returned to the advocate to ask the actors to change their profile photo. The other issue, of course, is the issue of signing. As much I will be talking about whether we have what the ministry is doing to advance to the electronic signature, the issues of signing. Remember, once you open an account, you are required to put in what we call a profile signature on your account. Once you sign that signature, that signature is no longer visible to you, but it is visible to our officers whenever you make an application. And therefore, if there is no semblance of the signatures, the application will be returned to us, the chargeol or the attorney or whoever, to be able to sign again on the application with a signature that resembles the signature on the account. The other issue, of course, is the issues of spousal consents. Spousal consents. I know most of the advocates actually will just pull the spousal consent from the charge document, the manual physical document that they have created. And sometimes that spousal consent, standing on its own, may miss a few details. You'll find that already in that document, you had already defined the property as the parcel number. You had already defined the chargeol. And therefore, when you pull that spousal consent and you attach it, you will find that it misses the name of the chargeol or the property number. And therefore, again, that will be taken back to you. The other issue, of course, and especially this is a problem we have had when it comes to the assessment. Sometimes the advocate is not able to clearly say whether there is a debenture. And sometimes you may find that the property has a debenture, but the advocate has not indicated so. So when it comes to assessment and an assessment is done, you will find that the advocate now will come back to say that he has been overcharged on stamp duty possibly because, and therefore the issues of keying in the correct details for the charge, including whether it is a charge, it's a charge or it's a further charge. Those details are very key, and they end up into the time. So it is very important for us to always be very careful when we are making the application, so that we can reduce the time that it takes where we are going back and forth. The registrar returning the application to you, do this, do this. And that is why we are increasingly making these webinars and trainings to ensure that all of us are the same page when you come to do the transactions. The issues of electronic signatures, the signatures, and especially where you ask the parties to sign, sometimes we'll use a mouse, the others will actually transfer the signing area to an iPad so that they can use a stylus or a finger. But sometimes you'll find that when they are signing, the fingers, the signature will go out of the signing area. And therefore, when that signature is displayed on our end, it will seem to have been cropped in a way. And therefore, you remind your clients and yourselves to always sign in the middle or within the signing area. Now, moving from there, we can also talk about the query on when the ministry is going to use the advanced digital signature. This is not entirely in our hands. We have been in touch with the Communications Authority, who will actually be able to authorize, and are the people who are able to issue the advanced certificate, the signature certificates, which the ministry will use. And I can say that we have been having quite a lot of engagement with them, and the process is already in motion to ensure that we'll come to a place where we can be able to move to that, and in compliance with the Information Act that requires us to use those advanced digital signatures. So that one is not yet. Currently, we are using the signatures provided, but it is something that is on the pipeline that will be able to do that. Then there is also the question of simultaneous applications. There are some applications that you can do. You can be able to do simultaneously, like a discharge and a charge. But the others you may not be able to do as much as there may be undertakings, and especially where the property is changing hands. The system has not been able to provide that. We are still working on that. The dynamics of it are not very easy, but there are some applications that we can be able to provide, which you can be able to do simultaneously. I think maybe we can be able to go back to the application. We'll be able to come back on other questions after we are through with the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kausha, for that. So on the screen, I have a charge where the invoice have been generated, and the only thing remaining for this charge is to pay the stamp duty and submit the application. And again, you can see that the submit button is still inactive, pending payment of stamp duty. Now, when it comes to payment of stamp duty, I know some of you might have experienced some challenges. We are integrated with the KRA in matters payment of stamp duty. In the near future, I believe the ministry will be able to collect the stamp duty fee for the processes that is undertaken by the ministry, and maybe we'll have a seamless payment method when it comes to our side. So for payment of stamp duty, at the moment, when you generate the payment PRN number from iTax and proceed and pay, you should be able to settle the invoice, the Ardhisasa invoice on your end, but only if you generated the PRN number from the iTax account of the proprietor or any party listed in this charge application, but not the advocate's iTax account. So, for example, if you generate the iTax, the PRN from the iTax account of the charger or the chargee, you'll be able to settle that invoice on your end, and that is basing on the nature of the integration that KRA gave us. Now, if you proceed and generate the PRN using maybe your law firm's iTax account or your own iTax account as the advocate, the KRA system will not recognize that payment through the integration that we have. But however, we have our own internal settlement mechanism whereby we'll require you to raise a ticket through the customer care, provide us with the payment proof. The assessor of stamp duty will log into the KRA portal, whatever they have been provided by the KRA, which they were using in the manual space, confirm the payment, and then proceed and settle that invoice for you. But the latter way will not be instant because you have to raise a ticket. The ticket goes to an officer, then we wait for you to upload the proof of payment, and then the officer works on it. But the other one is instant. You make the payment. The payment is, the KRA is notified of the payment. And when you log into Ardhisasa and confirm the payment, you are good to go. So we have an invoice at the moment on our screen. Whatever you are able to see is the invoice itself. So if you click on invoice, you are able to see the invoice. You can see you can download the invoice. You'll have the invoice number. You'll have the date of the invoice and the amount you are supposed to pay and the payment instructions. So KRA is the only body at the moment that is responsible for collection of stamp duty. The second option, which you see as a mock, is what we use in our test environment to sell the invoices that we generate for test purposes. So I'll go back, then I'll proceed and pay the invoice. And again, the system will give you the payment instructions. But for my case, I'll use the mock, and the system will be able to send that invoice, and you can see that the submit button becomes active, and you are required as an advocate to submit this application. We've had challenges with some of the advocates. They do all what is required of them. The clients have signed. The invoice has been generated. They've paid the invoice. They have requested for the invoice to be settled. It has been settled, but they don't go back and submit the application. So they assume that the system has, once they pay the duty, the charge application is with the ministry. But that is not the case. You have to log in and submit. And again, at this point, this charge application is not visible to the land registration officers until you submit. So we'll proceed and submit. And at this point, now this application reaches an officer under the land registration department. And the system auto allocates the task to officers. So there is no the officers do not allocate the duties to themselves. It's the system that auto allocates. There is an auto allocation mechanism in the system that allocates that to the officers. So up to that point, your charge has been submitted, and it's now at the desk of an officer who will work on that application. And the way the charges are assessed or are registered, we have two-level verification.
Sorry,
sorry,
Mr. Nambai, to interrupt.
Yes, kindly proceed.
Mr. Nambai, please clarify. I was asking for, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Kindly proceed.
I was asking on clarification on that issue of invoices.
Yes.
Because ordinarily we process the PRN from the KRA portal and then pay with it. So is it you go with the invoice and enter those invoice details for the PRN from the KRA portal, or are the two processes separate?
Now, whatever happens after you get the invoice, you have to log into the KRA iTax portal. You have to generate the PRN, that payment. It's a payment. You generate the payment slip which contains the PRN number. After that, you proceed and make the payment to KRA using the avenues that KRA has. It could be a bank, it could be the M-Pesa. And once you've paid and that money has reached the KRA side, now you come back to Ardhisasa to settle the invoice. So the KRA bits, you have to generate the PRN the way you usually generate in the manual space. Then you make the payment to KRA. Now, after you make the payment is when you come now to Ardhisasa and put the details that you have. Now, the PRN that you generated from the iTax, we have the Ardhisasa invoice number, you put it, and you settle the invoice. That is, if you go the first way, when I said you generate the PRN from your client's account. If you go the second way, where you generate from your account or your law firm account, then you contact customer care, they raise a ticket, and the collector of stamp duty will settle that invoice for you. I don't know if I've answered your question.
In part, yes, because when we're doing the PRN, they ask the rates and everything. So I was just trying to establish there is no discrepancy between the PRN and the invoice raised from the Ardhisasa system.
As long as you make the payment in full amount, because when you settle, the system will check the amount of money that the system requires you to pay versus the amount you paid to KRA. So if the two amounts are okay, and the system will allow that application to proceed. But if you pay a lesser or a higher amount, then the system will check, and that inconsistency in payment, the system will not allow. So you'll just proceed and raise your PRN.
I could make a proposal or a recommendation in regard to the charges. Maybe if you generate the invoices from Ardhisasa and they're accurate, maybe there could be a way of connecting that so that we are either entering that invoice number on the PRN, because if, for example, the charge has a debenture and you come up with a different amount, and when I go on KRA, I come up with a different amount, then it becomes a challenge for me. So perhaps the developers of the system could explore a way of synchronizing that to reduce discrepancies between the two.
Wambui, I believe your recommendation is okay. I agree with it, but as I mentioned, the ministry is taking over the collection of stamp duty, and we are in the final stages of some approval. So we won't be going the KRA way, because it will be a lot of work which will be unnecessary since we are taking over the collection of stamp duty. So in the coming week, it will be the ministry collecting the stamp duty, and will eliminate the integration challenges that we have with KRA. So in the due course, you'll be notified that when we take over the collection of stamp duty, but I believe it's on the final stages. So
thank you.
I believe that will answer. Yes. So that is it. I was finalizing. What will be required of you now after that is that you'll have to bring your title, because we have to endorse the charge on the title. So it will be required after you submit your application, or even when you just create the application, you are in the process of executing with your clients. Kindly bring your title, accompanied by a letter in duplicate stating that you are surrendering this title for registration of a charge under reference this. And when you bring the letters in duplicate, we will stamp the two letters. You go back with one. We retain one as a proof that we have your title. And when the charge is registered and endorsed on your title, you'll get a call to come and collect your title plus the registered charge document. So that is the process. There is no manual franking. We have what we call e-franking or digital franking. Someone had mentioned there's a QR code which comes with the charge document. When you scan that QR code, you'll get all the franking details. So there is no franking anymore. And it is the same for all documents that attracts stamp duty. So we've also, just to mention about the transfers, although we are not dealing with the transfers today, we've also eliminated the application for valuation. The system has a seamless way. When you apply for a transfer, it goes all the way to valuation without your input as the client. And after the valuation, you'll get the invoice for stamp duty, and you'll be able to pay. The system will frank your document, and you will be good to go. So there are some of the things you used to do in the manual space, which have been integrated into the digital space to ease the process. So maybe I'll go open room for question and answers. If you have a question, kindly raise the hand in the chat, in the Zoom platform, or text will handle. If you want to raise your question, kindly raise your hand, and we'll pick you to raise your question. I can see somebody by WCA. Kindly proceed and ask your question.
Thank you, Timothy.
We can't hear you clearly.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's about, you've mentioned that when we make payment, as long as the amount is exact, it will always reflect on the Ardhisasa side. But my experience has been different. That I made payment, this was land rent. The invoice was generated on the system. We paid in cash at Hope Bank at the teller. We were issued with a payment slip. But then some payments, like 4 of them, they didn't reflect on Ardhisasa. We followed up with the Ministry of Land. They checked and confirmed that the payment actually reflects on the bank statement, but the payment doesn't reflect the system. And finally, we were told it's an integration problem, that sometimes the integration between the bank and the system fails. And as a result, until now, the matter is yet to be resolved, with the bank refusing to take responsibility, and also Ministry of Lands does not take responsibility. So in that case, what should a person do?
Okay. Any other questions so that we answer them together? Maureen, kindly proceed.
Thank you. I have a question regarding the given the memorandum on long-term leases given on 2nd August 2023, we have mansionette number 15 in Lavington, which we have been trying to discharge a charge upon it. Is it possible for us to register the discharge over the property in the meantime to allow for the sale of property so that the conversion can proceed later on? Because the mother title has already been converted, but the mansionette has not been geo-referenced. So how do we go about registering the discharge so that we can allow for sale of the property?
Yeah, thank you, Maureen. James, if James is not ready, LK.
Hello, hi, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
So I have a question on transfer by chargee. I just wanted you to confirm whether the module is active, because we've been trying to register one for the past 6 months, and customer care keeps telling us that they are following up with the IT department. So we are stuck on that end. Thank you.
Are you in a position to share the parcel number? Kindly DM me in the chat section.
Okay.
Mr. Gakunga.
Okay, thank you. Also on transfers, would you maybe clarify if there is a general form? Because the ones that are there are only when the chargee is transferring to themselves, either by way of public auction or in a private treaty. So is there another form that is not LRA 60 and 61?
I'll request that you log in and check, because we do have a number of transfer LRA forms. We have LRA 33, 49, 32, 39, 42, 40. We have a lot of them.
Oh, this one is a transfer pursuant to statutory power of sale by.
Oh, by okay. Okay. I get your question. We do have 3 of them. We do have 60. We do have 61, and we do have 61A.
Okay, where can I find this 61A? Because it's not in the general regulations of 2017.
Oh, I think we will respond to that. Mr. Kaush will be able to respond to that.
Timothy, can I ask my question?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. This is James. I had asked some questions on the chat box, but for the benefit of everyone, let me just repeat them. The first one concerns the issue of the signature. When someone had set up the account first time, and maybe in the course of time, when he or she is now undertaking a transaction, he's already forgotten the account he used to set up. How does the signature he used to set up, how does he or she proceed? Either to set up, to update the account, the signature, or maybe to refresh or to remember the signature he had used. The second one concerns maybe guys who cannot, for whatever reason, sign, who would have maybe used thumbprints in physical documents. How do they go about signing or executing this application on Ardhisasa? Then the last one concerns just a clarification concerning this thing of stamp duty. I know you had said that there is a process of approval where the ministry will take over the functions from KRA. But I just wanted to understand, there is a challenge we've had in the past where maybe the assessment, what is it, from the invoice, when you go now to iTax and you try to generate the payment slip using the invoice reference, you find maybe the basis of assessment was erroneous in the sense that maybe the type of instrument that has been put there is different from what you are trying to register. It's a transfer, and maybe you are working on a charge application and you see you cannot edit the details on iTax. Will that be an issue that will be rectified, or I don't know? Maybe you can clarify that.
Okay, we will clarify that. I can see Mr. Gakonga, your hand is still up. Are you still asking a question, or you went? Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, and Mr. James, your hand is still up. Do you still have a question?
No.
Thank you. So I will respond to some of the questions, the one asked and the one on the chat. I'll begin with the last question about KRA integration, where you key in the invoice number, and maybe it was a charge and it tells you it's a transfer. Yes, we do acknowledge that we have that kind of challenge. And at the moment, before we effect the change that I had mentioned before, we usually recommend that if you put the invoice number, it gives you a different transaction. Under that section where it asks you for the bill reference number, which is the Ardhisasa invoice number, key in the parcel number and proceed and generate the PRN. The system will still accept that kind of payment. So we acknowledge that challenge, but just key in the parcel number if you experience that challenge. As we sort out the takeover, then we'll be able to have a seamless flow. You've talked about the signatures, about you set a signature and you'll want to reset, or you're not sure about the signature that you had signed. Yes, there is a way of resetting, but since this is a security feature, the reason we ask you to sign on the account is that signature you sign on the account, we use it to compare with the signature that you provide during the transaction. So I can simply say it's like a specimen that we have, so that when you make an application, the officer working on your application is able to see the signature you provided under the account and the signature that you have provided under the application. The officers also have access to the digital records, the scanned documents that used to exist in the parcel files, and they can log in and check from the previous document, if they exist, the kind of signature that you had in the manual space versus what you are providing. So if you want to reset the signature, you will contact customer care. They'll raise a ticket for you. Of course, you will provide reasons why you want to change the signature, and the ICT team will reset the signature on your account, and you'll be able to sign again. The same goes with the phone numbers and the emails. You have to raise a ticket and provide reasons why you're changing the phone number. And the reason is because assuming someone could easily change your phone number and that is what is used to access your account, it could easily breach the security of the system. So that is why you have to go through the ministry for such cases. So maybe I'll welcome Mr. Kaosha to respond about, someone had asked about the transfer by G. Yes, kindly let's mute our mics, please. Michelle Onsero, kindly mute your mic. Thank you. Someone had asked if the transfer by charge is working. Yes, it is working. But I'd requested that you share your parcel number so that, and probably you can DM your phone number so that we can
Timothy,
identify your issue.
I've shared with you.
Okay, yes. On the chat, we'll pick up from there because that is a unique case. But generally, the module is okay. It's working. We have a good number of applications that have been registered under the module. So I'll hand over to Mr. Kaosha to handle the issue of long-term leases where you want to discharge the thumbprint, and talk about the LRA 61A, which you say you cannot find it under some documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. I'll just dive into first the issues of Form 61A. I think Timothy has explained that we have 3 forms. I know under the LRA forms that appear on the website, 61A is not there. There must have been an oversight when we were able to publish those forms, but the Chief Land Registrar has powers to create a form, which he was able to do. So if you want to make an application where the statutory power of sale is being exercised by chargee in pursuant of an auction, you'll be able to find that Form 61A on the system. So the form is there. The other issue, of course, is the issue of the discharge that has been raised, where you were talking about long-term lease. We were able to talk about that last week. I believe we'll still be able to come back to that webinar again, where the mother has already been converted by the long-term leases, which are an encumbrance on that property. Someone needs to mute. Mr. Derito, I think we're okay. We were able to explain that what happens, there are different scenarios depending on the status of the development. If all the the developer has already registered all the subleases on that property, then there's a different process for those that are partially registered. So if the development is fully registered, what will happen, the proprietor or your client will be able to make an application to convert the long-term lease. And in the process, as we were able to explain, that will trigger the director of survey to go and do georeferencing on that property, be able to find out the cost, and then of course now be able to distribute the cost among all the units within that development, and thereby place a lien to prevent any subsequent transactions without that payment of georeferencing having been paid to the government. Therefore, it will not be possible for you to discharge and move the issues now to the next owner of the long-term lease until the director of survey is able to go to the site and confirm, and also be able to find the entire cost, and then have that distributed among the property owners on their registers. That webinar is also available. There's someone who had asked about the recordings. The recordings are available on YouTube. All the webinars that we have conducted, they're available. You can be able to go back and look at them. There is also a query on whether we can be able to do a write-up on these tutorials or these manuals. I think that is something that is still developing as we continue to finalize on the processes that we have not been able to automate on the system yet. So that is still a work in progress. We'll be able to provide that. There's someone who had asked about LRA 39. I think we did that. 39. I think we have not done. I'm being informed we have not done that webinar. So it will be able, I will be able to come on the system and do it, on webinar and do it. LRA 39, that is registration of an executor and administrator, which of course now also sometimes interlinks with other processes like conversion and add property features. I will also ask Mr. Timothy to explain just briefly on how to do a discharge and a charge simultaneously. He can explain. But before that, I'll also want to talk. There's someone who had asked whether the government agencies, GCBK, whether they have Ardhisasa accounts. Yes, they do have Ardhisasa accounts. And they also have Ardhisasa IDs in case you are doing a transactions with them. They'll be able to provide that Ardhisasa ID to you. And they also have their appointed signatories already on the system. So government agencies, most of them are compliant with Ardhisasa, and therefore you can be able to do transactions with them. So I'll ask Timothy to talk about how you can do a discharge and a charge simultaneously. Then there is the issue of, again, signatures and use of thumbprints. I think we have not been able to manage to use thumbprints currently. So if one is not entirely able to sign, maybe they can use a power of attorney to do that. But there's something that is work in progress, where we can use the BIOS, and also whether, like I talked, whether we can use the advanced digital signatures. That is also something that is in the pipeline. So Timothy, maybe you can talk about. There's also someone who had asked on the consideration, if the considerations appears more than 3 to 5 times when they are keying in, what happens? Timothy, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Kakosha. Regarding registration of charges and discharges, the system will allow you to do that. Let me just, before I answer the question, let me give the reason why we were not able to implement a discharge and a transfer, and then a charge. So the reason we are not able to implement that is the way the system was implemented, we had validations that will link the person doing the application to the registered proprietor on the system. So for the transfer, for example, if we are initiating a transfer, then register a charge. When you're initiating the transfer, the system will check who is the proprietor. So assuming Timothy is the proprietor, the system will check and it will find that Timothy is the proprietor. And that ownership will only change hands once the registrar approves the transfer. Then you want to initiate again, before the transfer is approved, you want to initiate a charge in the name of Mr. Kahosho. And the system will check if Kahosho is the proprietor of this parcel. And it will find that Kahosho is not the proprietor, and it will not allow that charge to go through. So it was a validation to improve the security of the parcels, so that you cannot initiate a charge for a parcel which is not yours. So that change of ownership is what made it a bit complex to implement a transfer and a charge at the same time. Nevertheless, we are in the process of implementing it, and in the course of time, you'll be able to do the 3 simultaneous application or 2 simultaneous application. But for an application where the ownership does not change, for example, you are discharging and you want to charge at the same time, then the system will allow you because the ownership does not change. The parcel belongs to Timothy and Timothy is discharging. And again, Timothy wants to take another charge. The parcel is still his. So you will initiate the discharge first and submit to the ministry all the way until you submit. And then you initiate the charge and submit. The officer will be working on the charge, or if the officer wants, it goes to an officer who the charge, he finds the charge and wants to work on it, the system has a way of listing the ongoing application on that parcel. And this officer will be able to see that there is an ongoing discharge, and they will wait for first the discharge to be approved so that they can process the charge. So you must begin with the discharge, pay the duty for the discharge and submit the application to the ministry, then initiate the charge and submit to the ministry. And the 2 applications, the officer working on it will be able to see that this parcel has 2 applications for a discharge and a charge, and they'll be able to process accordingly. But where the transfer is involved, it will be a bit complex at the moment. So there is someone by the name Grace who has requested, we checked some status of a parcel, but you've not indicated whether it's the numbers you have given me is block number or LR number. So kindly check so that we can be able to assist you. And probably you can leave your number so that after this, we can be able to contact you. Same case for the person who had requested the transfer by charge. Kindly leave your number so that we can be able to assist you after this. So if there are no more questions, we intend to demonstrate power of attorney, and we'll have more questions after that. So I'll proceed and demonstrate the power of attorney, then we can be able to ask questions after that.
So we'll be briefly looking at registration of power of attorney. Brenda, you can go ahead. I see you have a question.
Yes, I have a question. I'm sorry for joining late. With regards to registration of long-term leases, my question is, if an office block was already, the development was already done, registration done way back, assuming it's 2015, and one wants to sell his office space, the lease for that office space, do we still need to go through the conversion, since they cannot georeference only one office space?
Yes, as long as the mother title has been converted or was listed for conversion. Next, Mr. Kahara.
Yes, good afternoon. My question was on LRA 39. Sorry to take you back. I'm sure you've not done the LRA 39 yet. When I was doing an LRA 39 where we indicate the number of shareholdings, what shares, it's a tenancy in common. So we have 3 proprietors who own this title, and when you divide the percentage of shares, well, it was coming to around roughly 33.33%. So once you key in that information on the system, you find that you get an error at the end of when you submit the application. The error says that the number of percentage does not meet the 100% requirement. So I think that is perhaps a system error. Maybe you can look when you're doing the webinar for LRA 39.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's a challenge when you get an odd number. Yeah, but I think we'll look into it, especially when you have about three tenants. But definitely it's supposed to add up to 100. So we'll be able to check and see how that happens. So we'll be going straight to the power of attorney. I think we are a bit short of time. Maybe all I want just to say is that we need to understand, especially for those people who had already registered powers of attorney under the repealed laws or under RTA. I think the position is that you have to switch and have the power of attorney registered afresh under our RRA register. So I think we'll be explaining how that happens. Thank you, Karibuni.
Thank you. So I'll demonstrate how we register the power of attorneys on the system. Then I believe under that we'll discuss the questions that will arise from that. So again, just like the charge that we did, you have to initiate that application from an advocate account. Then you go to land registration and you go to power of attorney. And we have the 4 types of power of attorneys. We have the general power of attorney, irrevocable power of attorney, revocation of the power of attorney, and specific power of attorney. So depending on the kind of application you want to make, you'll select accordingly. For now, I'll go with specific power of attorney. We'll have the 4 tabs depending. I'll not go into that because we tackled that during the charge application. I'll go direct to make a new application. We'll have the FAQs, and I'll just proceed to the application details. For specific power of attorney, you'll have to provide the parcel number. So I have a Nairobi block 134, stroke 1358. Then the registry that you are registering that power of attorney in. At the moment, we do have Nairobi. We are in the process of digitizing Moranga. That's why you see Moranga under that list. But since we are mostly dealing with Nairobi, I'll go with Nairobi. Then you provide the proprietor, the registered proprietor, who is the donor in this case. So you will give the Ardhisasa ID of the donor and such, and then you will select self, because we cannot have a power of attorney to execute for you to register a power of attorney. You are registering that power of attorney, so you'll always have that self option only, and you proceed. Then you'll provide the donee, now the person you are giving the powers. Same case, you'll select that he will execute for himself. Then you'll give since it's a specific, you'll give that the specification of the power of attorney, the power limited to the following conditions. So you'll provide your conditions. Let me just say condition 1 for my case, since this is a demonstration, and you click on add. If you have a number of them, fulfilled, proceed, and key in the law firm details. So for this demonstration, I'll manually key in the documents, the details, sorry. Then I'll proceed to the next page, and I'll upload the documents. In this case, you'll upload that POA document that you have drawn, or the one that have been renewed by your clients. And then you will choose the file to upload and open. You can upload any other documents if you have any documents that you feel will facilitate the registration of this process. Then you proceed to the last page and you confirm the details provided. And once satisfied, you proceed and submit your application. And you'll have the message, application successfully submitted. And you will have the payments, of course. You'll have the registration fee of 550, and you'll proceed and make payments for that application. Now, the payments are made for the registration fee, which was reinstated. It is made to eCitizen. That is why we have the additional 50 shillings. So you'll proceed and make payments to the eCitizen platform, using the payment methods that we have on the screen. We have the M-Pesa, we have the debit or credit card, and the Pesa flow. And just to provide a disclaimer that these payment methods are fully managed by the eCitizen team. So it's not in the control of the Ministry of Lands. And I believe that was a government directive that all payment be channeled through that method. So the interface that you see on the screen is the interface that we've integrated with the eCitizen. But for the purpose of the demonstration, I'll proceed and use the mock payment that we use for the demonstration. So that is about the payment, and then we'll proceed and do the execution. So we have the advocate and the parties being represented. So I'll accept to represent the donor and the donee in this case. Then I'll proceed and do the execution. As the advocate, this is still on the side of the advocate. We still have the two signing methods, the signing pad on the screen and the signing with another device. So I'll just sign on the signing area for this demonstration and save the signature. So that is signing as the advocate. I'll request my colleague to sign, and then I'll log in to one account and do the execution. Logged in as the donor, and when I go to, we can see that we have the notification, which will of course send to your phone number in the email and on the platform. And when you click, it will navigate you to that application. We can see the application details. We can see that we have the signing area and all that. When we go to the invoice, we can see that the invoice has been paid. And just to mentioned, even your clients will get the invoice and they are able to pay for the invoices that are generated, be it the registration fee, be it what do we call stamp duty. Your clients can see and they can pay. They can see the documents and they can see all the details that you provided. So I'll proceed and sign. So that is the sign. Then I'll request for the one-time password and then we'll be able to proceed. Sorry for that disconnection. I had not realized that the screen has been disconnected. So I've keyed in the OTP, then I'll proceed and verify. So that is what is required from you as the advocate and your client. So I'll log in back to the advocate account so that we are able to proceed from there. So I've logged in back to the advocate account and I have to switch to the advocate. Then I proceed to the power of attorney and the specific power of attorney, and we have a POA. So at this point, we will be waiting for the second person to execute so that we can proceed. So just 1 minute, then we can proceed. You can ask 1 or 2 questions as we execute on the donor side. Mr. Kausha will handle the questions.
I can see a few questions on what to do if the donor is a company who is to sign if the system shows self-signing. I think anytime you key in the Ardhisasa ID of the donor, the system is able to know, to figure out whether that person is an individual or it's a company with an appointed signatory account. So they'll be able to, the system will be able to provide the necessary alternatives for signing. So it is not necessarily that it will just show self-signing. It depends with the account holder. Someone is still on signatures. The signature cannot be the same as we do on paper. What can we be able to do when you compare it will not be the same. I think the issue there is semblance. I think for once, in this case, based on the platform that we have provided, currently what we look for is semblance, because again, the other security features have been satisfied. We mapped your identity when you registered. We have been able also to ensure that the professionals working on those accounts are able to identify you. And therefore, the matter of signatures currently is just to ensure that the signature is as close as possible to what you could be able to do, because we understand that if you use your finger to sign, it may not be exactly 100% when using a pen. How does one continue an application when, say, the advocate handling ceases to work for the firm? In this case, the Ardhisasa details of the firm have been input in the application. I know that's a challenge we are experiencing, but we are working on a module where we'll be able to have the law firms, the registered law firms, be able to take control of the application to assign and reassign tasks to the advocates within the firm. But currently, there is a challenge. We'll have to ask all the parties within that application to cancel the application and redo the application if the advocate is not able to finalize the tasks they were supposed to finalize before they leave the firm. So there's also the question of in-house advocates who are not linked to a law firm. Can you provide this alternative? Yes, noted. We'll still be able to do that. So there's someone who is saying that they have a task that has been up to 60% for the last 3 weeks. You can please be able to DMS the reference for that application. We will be able to see what the issues will be there. I'm requesting for the state for my 61A pursuant to assess. We'll be able to respond to you on the email on that. Can ask Timothy to finalize on the application, and we'll take the next round of questions.
Thank you. We'll proceed with the application that we had initiated. As you can see on your screen, after all the parties have signed, you'll get a second invoice. because the registration of a power of attorney attracts a stamp duty fee, a nominal stamp duty fee of 200 shillings. So the first invoice was for a registration fee. Then the second invoice is for payment of stamp duty. As we can see, we have an invoice, so we'll proceed and make the payment. And again, we will mock the payment. But on your side, the payment is made to KRA. And after you pay, you can see that the submit button is active and you can proceed and submit the application. Now, when this application comes to the ministry side again, it will be handled by the two-level verification process by officers. It goes to the first officer, then it goes to the final registrar, who will approve. And when your application is approved, it will be given the power of attorney entry number format that I had mentioned before, Nairobi / the entry number that the system will assign, depending on the number of POS that have been registered for that month, stroke the month it was registered, stroke the year it was registered. And you'll be able to transact with that POA on the system. So that is the process of registration of a POA. I'll ask if there are any questions so that we can respond to those questions, and any other question that you might have regarding the first presentation of the charge. So maybe I can see we have Situma, we have G, and we have Kahara with their hands raised. I'll take the question in that respective manner. So Mr. Situma, if Mr. Situma is not ready, is G ready?
My question is very simple.
G, we cannot hear you. Kindly unmute your mic and respond.
I've unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
I was asking, is it possible to register two documents simultaneously? That is the discharge of charge and the transfer.
I believe we had tackled that, but just for more clarification, at the moment it's not possible to do a simultaneous transaction where a transfer is involved. So you can do for a charge and a discharge and a charge, but where the transfer is involved, it becomes a bit, it will not possible depending on the implementation that we had on the system. But I had highlighted that we have a way which we are now implementing, because it will be ready and we'll be able to do the simultaneous transactions. Wanjiru, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Wanjiru or Sichuma? Okay, any other person with a question? Yes, Wanjiru? WCA?
I didn't get the answer to that question.
Sorry, come again.
There was a question I asked. There's a question I asked earlier about land rent that was paid through Cooperative Bank, but didn't reflect on the system due to what was termed as an integration error. I didn't hear the answer to that.
Sorry for that. I believe since that is a unique case, kindly DM us the details so that we can pick up after the registration, because that is a unique case which was brought due to the integration issues. So just DM us the details, then we'll be able to pick up after. Mboya Wangungu, Mboya Advocates, kindly ask your question. I can see your hand.
Yes. Hello. I'd like to get your input or an answer at the very least on transfer by a chargee, where we have been trying to do the application, but every time we get to the submission bit, there's always either a system generated error or there's something wrong on Ardhisasa side. Every time we've communicated with Ardhisasa officials, they always say there's a problem. The IT is working on it for the last 3 months. We can't move. So I don't know what the issue is.
So about the transfer by chargee, the module is working, but I believe when you were starting, Mr. Kaosha talked about verification of the parcels, and we do allow transactions of parcels which have been fully cleaned and verified on the system to transact. That's why for the first person who talked about the transfer by chargee, I requested for the parcel number. So maybe I'll request for your parcel number through the direct message so that we can check about the verification status of your parcel and advise accordingly. But generally, for parcels which have been cleaned and approved to operate on the system, the module is fully operational. So the Mboya Wangongu law firm, kindly just DM and DM with your phone number so that we can pick up after with that conversation.
Hello.
Eric Gishanga.
Hi, this is Situma. Sorry.
Yes, Situma.
Yeah, sorry, I was having a technical hitch. My question is concerning if you have a title that has 4 proprietors, and the proprietors agree to give a power of attorney to one of the individuals, one proprietor. Now, and the power of attorney subsequently becomes registered. In a future transaction, let's say replacement of title or a transfer, on the portal, would you be required in terms of appending that only the person who has the power of attorney should proceed on the Ardhisasa platform, or the consent comes from all the parties?
If the power of attorney is registered against a person and against a certain individual, when that when that person with the rights, the POA rights transact on the system,
how to transact?
We will go by the execution of that POA. We will not require that the POA and the proprietor to execute. So if the POA executes on a document, that is sufficient enough. We will not require that we have the consent of the proprietor, because the POA registration is a consent by itself.
No, I'm talking about if a title has like four owners, yeah.
Yes.
4 owners in terms of in a fraction bit, maybe at a 25% per owner. Now these owners give that authority to one individual to transact on their behalf, yeah.
Yes.
Now, at the point of maybe doing a replacement, you see now, if the advocate is transacting with their client, would the other parties also have to sign that they are consenting in this replacement, or will we just be working with a signature from the individual individual person who has been given the power of attorney?
Okay, Mr. Kaosha will be able to respond to that. I'll take the question from James and Eric so that we can respond to the 3 questions.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting for Eric, but I can just proceed. Mine is in relation to the specific power of attorney. We've had instances where maybe some of these corporate institutions want to donate the power to execute documents, whether they're talking about banks or other corporates, to specific power, specific attorneys. Now the challenge you faced is when you are accessing that power of attorney tab, specific power of attorney tab, it provides for title number where you are supposed to key in maybe the property reference. But you see, the intention of the donor in our instance is just the attorneys to sign documents across the board. So how does one navigate such an instance?
Okay, we will respond to that, Mr. James. Mr. Eric, do you still have your question?
Question has been asked by the previous, which is on specific
we can't hear you clearly.
Property interest.
Yes, repeat your question, Mr.
Hello,
Eric.
are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Question has been asked by the previous, the registration of attorney not touching on whereby donating powers in respect of court case to a person how do you proceed with registration platform? Thank you.
I'll respond with to the general power of attorney regarding the parcel number. Then Mr. Kaosha will respond to the first question. Yes, we do have the challenge of the parcel number, and it's a discussion that we are having with the registration department on way forward, whether we should eliminate the parcel number on some modules or on all of them, and we'll have the implementation. So for the power of attorney where it is a bit general, like the bank side, we'll be able, but that is an implementation that will not take long. As well as when we get the clearance from the registration department, we'll be able to effect that. So I'll ask for your patience, Mr. Eric and James, so that you will be able to do your transaction. So over to you, Mr. Kaush.
I think the question that was asked on the issues of a scenario where you have about 4 tenants in common who come to do conversion. Remember, the requirement for someone to do a conversion, for instance, requires the property owners to have their Ardhisasa accounts. And once the advocates initiates, let's say, an application, for instance, for conversion, remember this property is going to be linked to the accounts of these 4 proprietors. And therefore, the Ardhisasa IDs of these owners, irrespective of whether they are signing or it is the power of it's the attorney who is signing, they'll have first to be provided to the advocate who has initiated the transaction. Now, once the application has been done, or you are doing the application as the person initiating the transaction, when it comes now to those 4 individuals, the query will be, once you key in their Ardhisasa ID, the query will be on who is supposed to execute on behalf of those individuals. So you will still have to choose for all of them, the attorney, if it is one attorney who has been provided the power to sign on their behalf. And therefore, it is pretty straightforward that you will choose the attorney, but now you'll have to choose for each and every proprietor and every owner in that transaction. So it is not, you will not just make one signature that will be general to all of them. It is every proprietor through the Ardhisasa ID, then you choose the person to sign. Even if it is just the same person, you'll have to choose them 4 times to execute on behalf of those individuals. Now, I think we are really running short of time. I don't know if there is a banding for those questions that we may not have responded to. Timothy is putting our email address on the chat. You can get in touch with us. If you are having applications that have been pending on Ardhisasa for 1 or 2 reasons, or if you may have queries for applications that have not gone through, kindly send us the reference through that email so that we can be able to respond and maybe offer the way forward. So Timothy has been able to put the email on the chat. Kindly use the email to send to us some of the queries that you may have. Having said that, I want to thank all of you for having been with us since 10 in this webinar. The Ministry of the State Department for Lands and Physical Planning is engaged to continually interacting with you on the progress that we are making in this rollout of digitalization to ensure that we have a more user-friendly system and also to address the queries that you may have. We agree that there may be a few challenges and deficiencies here and there, but we are working very hard together with you as our main stakeholders to try and iron them out. So we want to continue thanking you for your patience and your invaluable feedback that you have always given, either through the webinar, or when we interact with you in other forums for training. We really value that. So we'll be able to inform you what we'll be training next Wednesday. Remember, the link is still the same, so you'll just have to join in using the same link. All these trainings are being recorded. You can be able to find the recordings on our YouTube so that you can be able to see what we have discussed and also get the queries and also see how some of the queries have been responded. Please also kindly continue using the tutorials that we have provided for all those transactions on the system, and also continue interacting with the system. Remember, reputation is the art of learning. The more you do, the more interact with the system, the more adept you become. So thank you so much. We really want to appreciate you. Till next Tuesday, from here at Ardhisasa, we want to say, shamba lako hati safi. Ardhisasa, have a good afternoon and have a good week. Asanteni sana. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you too.